Hi, and welcome wherever you are in the world today. I'm super excited to be here with you and to talk about how to run a successful content program using ClickUp. For context, my name is Chappell. I'm the managing editor here at ClickUp, and my claim to fame is that I was actually the first marketing hire on the team. So a little background of how I came to be in the role that I am today was when I started, there was one developer, one designer, and myself, and we created all of the content. That included the help docs, our weekly product releases, and we use freelancers for the blogs. But today there are multiple developers, multiple designers, and we have our content team built out with CRO, email, landing pages, an editorial squad focused on the blog, podcast, and customer stories, as well as a dedicated copywriter who also helps to create the ad copy and the various initiatives that we have with the creative team depending on who needs what. This is a little bit of what our team looks like today, and it is scaling quite quickly. This will actually change probably within the next month. I've learned a lot from building out this team as we've brought new people on board and as we brought new leadership, and there are more and more requests coming in. So I'm super excited to talk about how we can best scale the program and continue to scale because there are more changes coming each week. Some of the key takeaways that I am going to be sharing with y'all today and that I hope everyone can understand are the pain points that many content teams face, whether you're on one or requesting content from one. Learning how to create a scalable content management system using ClickUp, and then ultimately determining the OKRs to track success, inspire innovation, and grow your team. So to start, there are multiple pain points faced by any team, but some of the main points include silos and stress for content teams. So diving into that, 60% of marketers are using over 20 tools on a regular basis. That's insane. That's a lot of jumping around, a lot of making sure that the information is being relayed from one tool to the next, and it's just a lot of manual work to really create your content strategy. The next point is that 86% of marketing leaders say their current workload is creating stress for their team. There are so many requests coming in on a regular basis that content, it really touches everything. And so whether it's the sales team or the CS team or the creative or marketing team, everyone needs content in order to run a successful campaign launch. And without the proper tools and infrastructure in place to manage it all, it can cause a lot of stress not knowing what the priorities are, information is scattered, and a lot of time is wasted. So to the third point I want to get across is that 46% of marketers say they lack timely data to make strategic decisions, meaning that over the course of these 20 tools that they're using, by the time the data gets to whoever needs to make that decision, it's either too late or they've already made a different decision because they just didn't have the data in time. So oftentimes these learnings from these decisions are undocumented. So new decisions that could have likely been prevented, I'm not saying they were bad decisions, but they could have been prevented had people had their data and documents to learn from previous decisions or mistakes. So long story short, content touches every team, and it cannot operate in a silo. Those issues that are happening, the stress, the lack of data, the numerous tools all over the place really create inefficiency for the entire team, and it's just not a scalable solution. So scalable content teams do this. They create one single source of truth for planning, creating, and tracking. They prioritize quality and quantity, automating as much as possible, making those learnings accessible to all, and building process in conjunction with other teams that align to shared objectives. We'll dive into that further when we get to the OKR point, but I want to start by building the single source of truth. So here at ClickUp, we've created databases with tasks for every blog, every email, every landing page, and anyone can access the saved research, version history, and performance over time. You'll see in the screenshot here is a snippet of our blog database. They can see the keyword research, for example. They can see where it fits in the funnel. They can see the draft, and so on and so forth, what category they're in. And it's just super helpful for not even the content team itself, but for aligning with emails, they can see what resources they have. So because it all lives in ClickUp, anyone can access this from anywhere. The next point is that quality matters, ensuring you're sourcing from industry experts, optimizing your site performance, as well as user experience, and providing the best possible answer for the query matters. Google cares, and you should too. if you want your content to rank. For example, we wrote, let's just say, over 50 agile blog posts, and we were trying to get the quantity out there. We didn't necessarily care about who these posts were authored by, to what extent the research was done, and the quality of the overall article. We ranked on the first page for about 5 of them over time. So that was a lot of wasted time creating way too many articles that we needed and really only ranking for 5. Going back to one of the pain points, lacking timely data and the stress of overworking your team is prevented by slowing down and prioritizing quality. You can create maybe fewer articles. Let's say you don't publish 50, but maybe 25. That's still a whole month's worth of content, and you're ranking for those intended queries because you slowed down and prioritized quality. It's super important to do just that. By having that single source of truth, it's much easier to when the research is done because you can reference back and you don't have to duplicate that work again and again. So the next point is that automations are your best friend. That workload, all the manual, unnecessary work, much of it can be resolved with automations. You can reduce errors and give your team room to be creative by automating manual processes. Assigning work, changing status, creating action items, updating stakeholders, and more can all be done with automations. You can take a look here at our blog process. We have a template that we apply to the task. When a blog gets started, when a status changes from review to ready, it moves from one subtask to our designer's plate so that they can get started on the blog image. When another author moves the status to a different one, the SEO team gets notified for review. A lot of that we don't even have to think about because it's an automation, and in just a status change, it moves from one stage to the next, and we can move on to a different task. Not having to worry about all these extra steps, remembering all the processes because it's already taken care of for us through automation. The fourth point is sharing insights to stay agile. So again, lacking timely data to make those strategic decisions comes from not having those insights. When you create wikis for learning and automate check-ins for regular performance tracking, you can stay on top of what the latest performance is and apply those learnings to future tests, future iterations, future content that you're creating using recurring tasks as reminders to ensure that that documentation is up to date. This is a quick example of a wiki for CRO testing, and you can see the champion creative, you can see what the learning was, and the next step. A year hasn't gotten by that none of this is up to date because we have these recurring tasks in place. So if we have a new person starting, we have all of the latest information and they might not know, but because it lives in a wiki, they can go back and we don't need to entirely revamp processes because they're regularly updated. Creating these in custom fields, anyone can see it. If they want to know, hey, what's the latest learning, they can go in and check what the champion creative was. What's the next step being done here, all in one place. So kind of relating back to the first point as well. You're not wasting time. No one actually has to be looped in because anyone can come and find that information. You're not stressing about what your team did because you don't need to ask them, you don't need to bother them. You can go in and look. The last one, and probably the most important, is creating top-down OKRs. So for those who don't know, OKRs stand for Objective and Key Results. Creating them from the top down, your team can understand what they're working on. When they don't, they can feel like they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They don't understand the purpose of it. It's discouraging and it's overwhelming. But if you have these objectives, high-level objectives that they can create their own key results from, they determine what's needed to help the company reach success. They feel like the work that they're doing matters. We're going to dive into how to create those top-down OKRs in the next few slides. Let's take a look. So goals in ClickUp are high-level containers that break down your objectives into small, measurable targets, which means your objectives are your goals in ClickUp and your key results are the targets within the goal. If you haven't used our goal feature, I'm going to break it down for you in these next few slides. So creating a goal in ClickUp, you can create a goal folder for the quarter, for example, add your objectives within that folder for each goal card, and then the targets that the goal card has can list out the different key results. An example here is that maybe we want to consistently publish 2 landing pages per week. What are the key results that we need in order to get us there? Well, we need to hire an additional copywriter. We need to hire 2 additional designers. We need to streamline stakeholder review to eliminate those unnecessary steps. we need to create documentation for the landing page database tracker. So those are just an example of one way for tracking. You can take this a step further because the targets you actually have within your goal can link to tasks. So you can mirror that same system when you're creating your tasks. For example, by having a dedicated list for your Q3 OKRs and adding a task for each objective you have, you can use nested subtasks or subtasks to list out each of those key results. From there, the action can happen within the task. You can use relationships to link all of the relevant tasks to said subtask. And in the goals, when you move different statuses, it's tracking the percent. So if you reference back, you'll see, for example, 63% done because certain tasks are in progress or completed. And showing the progress on the goal helps keep the team aligned. It's a really great way to keep your objectives top of mind the whole time you're working throughout the entire quarter. So you set them, that's really great. Now what? And this is super important. And I think a lot of people fall into this trap of, okay, I've set them, we have these really awesome goals, similar to your resolutions at the beginning of the new year. When you hear, I'm gonna get in shape, I'm gonna eat super healthy, I'm gonna write it all down and it's gonna happen automatically. And maybe you look at it a few times, but you never reference it again. The year goes by, you haven't lost those 10 pounds or whatever the goal was that you set for yourself. Accountability is the most important in all of this. And there are certain ways that I work with my team to keep everyone accountable, myself included, for those OKRs that we've set. So taking into weekly goals. At the start of the week, we meet as a team and we review each individual's top 5 goals. We discuss the new blockers and touch base on the latest top goal statuses. You're holding the team accountable for what they set for themselves. Narrowing down to 5 makes it digestible. There's a lot going on all the time. So what are the top 5 most important things that they're trying to get done this week? All of these goals within their goal card should ladder up to the OKR for the quarter for the company. And you can take that and review them in your one-on-one meetings. I've set up this document. It's collaborative, it's private to me and my direct report, and there are 4 sections within it. A follow-up, which is used just for regular check-ins, different tasks, maybe their quarterly goal progress tracking, what's working well, calling out the things that you see, whether them as an individual or for the team, and it's for them as well. So what do they see is working well? Because they know this doc exists, they can go through it, they can go to it throughout the week, make notes. You can also do the same. What about room to grow? What are they thinking? Maybe you gave them feedback on a task and they want to note like, hey, in the future, these are some areas that I might be falling behind or that I think I can improve upon, and same goes for you. Hopefully they also give you feedback for yourself during this time as well. And then the takeaways, when you're having that discussion and talking through documenting, the takeaways are not just lost into the abyss. We use the checklist feature within the doc. So you have checklist formatting and they can check each of those takeaways off once they complete them. For example, I have a direct report named Layla. If her and I both have takeaways, I'll write her name in the front and then she knows, okay, this is my action item. And we'll follow up the next week because it lives within the doc itself. Each page is for each weekly one-on-one. So I can easily reference it. Did they check that off? Do I need to follow up again to see if that was taken care of? And hold people accountable. Taking this the next step is monthly brainstorms. So this gets people creative. When you block out an hour at the beginning of each month, it gives them time to be like, hey, let me get out of the weeds for a second and think about how I can brainstorm together. What's working well? What's progressing? What do we have coming up? And how do we want to make that better using the knowledge that we have from the recent tasks we completed? What can we improve? What is something that you guys worked on that maybe you could branch off and make better? This gets the team to be collaborative. And usually because people on this call come from different teams, and they know that the meeting is coming, they can do the research beforehand and brainstorm ways to beat their blockers or to make the brand something better that we all connect with. By having the perspective of, say, a developer or designer on the call, it's people outside of the content team, quote unquote, that offers those different ideas that we might not have thought of. For example, if in one of our calls we had a developer give the idea of, hey, on our blog we use a lot of GIFs. Maybe instead we could create a mock version of the template that someone could go in and check off tasks without actually having to be in ClickUp. This is an idea that honestly us as developers didn't really know how to think of that and how to put it into action. But because he offered that perspective, we're able to level up our blogs and create a quick environment that really simplified a lot of what we were trying to explain. The next one is discussing with stakeholders. So connecting with other teams outside of your own on the OKRs that you all have set internally on your team, for the department, and ultimately for the company allows everyone to come together and see if you're ultimately being the blocker of someone else's objective getting done. So we have, for example, promo plans, CRO testing, ad copy, case studies, customer stories. This isn't all taken care of by content. We have to collaborate with product marketing. We have to collaborate with performance in order to get the job done. And they might be not prioritizing those things if we hadn't have collaborated at the beginning of the year to create the objectives for the quarter that we wanted to get done. So just having these monthly, quarterly check-ins, both with your department and teams outside, allows for those objectives to make sure that you're getting them done and you're also not becoming the blocker for anyone else. So a long story short, ultimately, a successful program actually begins with people management. By eliminating these unnecessary tools, automating your manual tasks, and balancing workloads, you enable problem solving, foster collaboration, and inspire growth under a shared objective. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned for myself, going from a team of me, as far as marketing goes, to a team of 11 or so between designers, developers, and writers, is that people want to know why their work matters. They'll feel inspired and encouraged and willing to stay, put in those extra hours when they know that what they're working on ladders up to overall company objectives, mission, and growth. When they don't see that, it's not encouraging to want to put in the extra time and ladder up and ultimately grow professionally. They'll start seeking opportunities elsewhere. When they know that you're working towards goals and their performance is measured based on that, the outcomes of these goals, and they're held dependent on the outcome overall for the company, they want to meet those standards. So, will you sync or scale? Creating a single source of truth for applying and tracking. Creating content all in one place. It's really easy if you're managing your blog and WordPress and your email and your ESP and your website and Webflow and what have you to be disconnected with what content exists. If you're not the one person overseeing all of it, people who work on email might have no idea what blogs or landing pages exist that they could reference within the emails themselves. So you're not only creating that for yourself, but for other people as well. Second, prioritizing quality and quantity. Slowing down, taking time to really research, find those external stakeholders that you can use. Who are the experts in the industry? Whether that's just pulling a quote for them or getting their review on a post makes all the difference. And then ultimately automating as much of that as possible. Any step that you can think of that can be done by a robot, let the robot do it. There's so much more room for creativity when you release yourself from these manual processes, because we're constantly improving those. And sometimes those manual things just become automatic for ourselves. But when you release yourself from them, you realize how much more creative freedom you actually have to make learnings accessible. And that's the fourth point, make learnings accessible. Don't store all of that information internally. Someday, you might not be at the company anymore, or you might have moved into a different department. And leaving that legacy for other people so they can know what was successful or not. Especially as you scale and bring on more people, your role is likely to shift whether you want it to or not. Other people might come and take things on that you were previously doing, and you want to share that wealth of knowledge so that they don't have to waste their time going through different testing, different outlines, etc., that you already did. And then lastly, build process in conjunction with other teams that will align to shared objectives. When the company has those high-level objectives known, everyone can ladder down from that. You can measure it on a weekly, on a daily, on a monthly basis, so that everyone knows the work that they're doing matters. They won't feel burnt out by the fact that they're having all of this stuff put on their plate, and they don't know why, because you can't break it down by priority. Really being able to know the priority and move stuff off, like, hey, this doesn't ladder up to our OKR, I'm going to bump this to next quarter. They'll feel empowered like you are, to be protective of their time, and they also know, because they know that they're working towards a goal, that their work matters. So this is the very high level of some of the key learnings that I've had building out the content team here at ClickUp. I'm super excited to continue to grow that team and to continue to scale and share future learnings as our team goes from 20 to 50 and beyond. I'd love to hear from y'all. So if you practice any of these, have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, let me know. You can find me on LinkedIn, Erica Chappell, and I'm super excited to see you in ClickUp.